Welcome back everyone, and let's continue with our project today, and I want to start with some bug fixing. In here you can see that we are refreshing the token in this part over here, but the thing is that we're refreshing it only after we actually have a Google user. So that means if our token has already expired, it means this code will never get to this part. So I actually quickly refactored this code a little bit, so I'm just going to copy it in here. Okay, so let's take a look at it. You can see that the first change I've made in here is that we're going to send a custom header called XRT, which stands for refresh token. And that is because if we go back to the previous code, what we're doing in here for refreshing the Google token is that we are passing the user. But in our case, we don't actually have a user anymore because we're just sending the request from the client side. And that means that we do not have a user. So we need to somehow figure out who is actually sending this request. And the way we do that is by using the refresh token, which we will be actually storing on the front end side too. So we're going to look at the request, and if it doesn't have a bearer token or a refresh token, then we're going to say that the user is not authenticated. Then we go lower in here, and the first thing we do is that we'll try to authenticate the user with the existing token. If that doesn't work, then we're going to look at the refresh token, and we're going to try and get a new access token using that refresh token. Next, we're going to do the exact same thing as before. We're going to store the new token and the expiry date, and then we are going to add the user to the request so we can easily retrieve it later. Okay, another thing we need to change is the actual function for refreshing the Google token. So I'm just gonna copy this one in here. What changed here is that currently, before we're using the user to get the refresh token, but now we're just sending the refresh token here. And we're doing basically the same thing. And what we took out is the check for this token expiry because we don't really need it anymore. We're just going to refresh the token in case the actual access token does not work anymore. And basically it's the same thing as before. Next, let's go back to our socialite controller, and we want to also send the refresh token back to the front end, and we are going to call it our code, which is the refresh code. Let me just tidy up in here a little bit. Okay. Next, we need to do some changes on the front end. So for this, let's go to our user TS inside the stores, and let's add that new token over here. We're gonna call it off our token, and it's gonna be the same as the previous one, as the off token. We just need to forget it when we log out, and let's also add it in here so we export it from this file. Now if we go to our ofetch, we want to do the same. Let's just clean up a little bit in here. We want to also check for the R tokens. We're gonna say user store of R token. So if both of them exist, we're going to add the bearer token, and we also want to add, if you remember, the custom header. So for that, we're gonna say XRT. That's just the name we gave it. We can actually use any name in here. I'm gonna say user store of our token. Okay, those seem to match. Let's clean up a little bit in here. We're not going to use the options or that. And one other thing I want to add is that when we receive the token, we actually want to set it a max age. Otherwise, the cookie is getting deleted every time you actually close the tab or the browser. So in order to do that, we need to add an option here, which is going to say max age. And we're going to give it this value, which is in seconds. It means 1 month. Now let's go to another file, which is off check global. And in here, we also want to include our token. So for this, we're going to say cookie fmg our token, and it's going to be our underscore token. And let's just grab the max age again, so we can set it in here for both of them. Let's yes lint this. Actually, we're missing a comma. Let's delete this from here. Now, if we do have a query code, it means that we just logged in. So that means we're also going to have the other code, which is going to be this one. So let's update that. We need query our code in here, and this is going to be our code. This is the value you saw that we added in the response some time ago. Okay, now let's copy this too. This is going to be of our token, and again in here let's add an R. Also let's add the new token to the check over here. We're gonna say and of token, and let's add it in this check over here too. We're gonna say and. Okay, and also after forgetting the user, we want to nullify this other cookie too, so our token, like this. Okay, last thing we need to do is to go to the user page, and we also need to get rid of the FMR token in here when we log out. So we're gonna say our token in here, and let's also nullify the cookie for that. So we're gonna say our token. Okay, now let's take a look if it actually works. So let's just take a look at the browser. If we refresh this, now let's go and log in. Okay, we can see we now have both cookies, the R token and the simple token. If we log out, they should disappear. Okay, so that works fine. Hopefully now our authentication is going to work fine. So let's just close some of these tabs. I want to actually also delete this login page because we're not going to be using it. Let's continue with some page designs. So for this, I want to actually add some new fonts that I've downloaded from Google Fonts. I'm going to paste them in here, and now we also need to include them into the main CSS. To do that, I've also prepared these font face in here, and we also have a new class called PixelOp font, which is going to use this new PixelOp font. Okay, the next thing I want to do is basically I want to change this button into a Google sign-in button in case we are logged out, and leave this as an avatar in case we're logged in. So let's go here. I want to change the top navigation, and we want to use the user store. So for that, I'm going to just copy paste this bit in here. And for the authorization button, I actually have a new component, which is called let's call it GAuth button.view. Basically, it's just an SVG image with some classes from Tailwind. And let's just let this. Let's go back in here and let's actually include it. I already have the code for this bit over here, so let's just copy and paste it and let's go for it really fast. So basically, if the user is logged in, we're going to show a link with its avatar, and it's going to go into the user page. Otherwise, we're just going to show the off button from Google, the one we just created over here. And I noticed an issue when trying to show the user avatar in here. Sometimes it doesn't show up because it doesn't load, because you don't have permission to load it. And it seems like just having this parameter over here actually solves that issue. So if we save this right now, let's take a look. Okay, so now we have the sign in with Google button. Let's click on it. Let's log in again. Now we are in here, and we can actually see the avatar that comes from the Google user. Now let's refactor this a little bit. I want to also refactor this button because you can see we have a hard-coded URL in here, and we want to be using our env API URL in here. So let's start with creating a script setup. We're going to use TypeScript. Let's close this, and we want to use the runtime config. I'm just gonna copy this from another place. So we're using runtime config. This means that we have access to this API URL, and then we're also adding auth redirect, just as in here. And now everything that's left to do is add this in here and make this one to use this variable in here. So, okay, now let's see if this actually works. So let's go back in here, let's log out, and then let's refresh the page, click on login, and this works. Okay, now let's close this all down and let's go to our index page and start working on that. Let's start by adding some structure to this. So I want this to be a flex column, and I want to have multiple sections in here. So first section is going to be the latest reports that we have for the apps. Then we're gonna make another one which is going to be worst apps. So basically the apps with the most reports. And then we're gonna have the worst devs, which is gonna be the developers that have the most reports against their apps. Let's save this. I want to take a look at it in full screen. Let's see how this works. I actually want to add a shadow here so we know where are the edges of the page. So if we do this now, we need to go to the default layout, and I think we need to add a shadow in here. Let's see if this works. Cool, so now we have a shadow in here, and I think we also need some padding. So let's add that on our page. Let's say 4. Yep, this looks okay. Now let's add a couple more sections where we explain our visitors what this website is about. So this one, I guess we're gonna say just the title, FairMobileGames. And another section where we give some kind of subtitle. And the one I thought about is bringing shameless developers to shame. Okay, cool, let's style this a little bit. So for these sections, I want to use the new font we've added. So this is Pixel Up font. Cool, I think we'll need to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe bigger. Okay, let's leave that for now. We're gonna say text center. Then we also want it to be uppercase, and we're gonna say text primary. Okay, I think I want to make it bold and maybe even a little bit bigger. So let's go like this. Yeah, I think that's much better. Now for this other one, I think we're actually gonna copy this. Should have something like the same style, but of course we're gonna make it smaller. That looks alright. Let's maybe change the color. Yeah, something like that. I think it looks fine. Cool. Now I want to have a button over here somewhere which will let the users actually create a new report. So let's create this here. I'm gonna say found an app, then report it here. And I think I'm gonna have a Next link in here. Okay, let's actually just close it like this. And we're gonna say report it here. So for this, we're actually going to create a new page, which is going to be inside our pages. We're gonna create a new folder called reports. And we're going to call this new page new.view. Okay, let's make a basic boilerplate in here. Report, new report page. Okay, let's save this. Okay, let's make this actually into a flex column. So we're gonna say flex column. Let's add a div in here. Let's put this inside. And also this one is going to be a separate div. Okay, let me actually copy the text I made for this bit over here. So it's going to be like this: found an app or game on the Play Store that is full of ads, barely usable, or uses fake promotion ads, then just report it here. Okay, let's style everything a bit. So I want this to be a red color, and I also want it to be centered. Okay, let's slant this a little bit. I want this link to go to the new page we've created, so we're gonna say 2 equals reports and then new. Okay, let's add some styling in here. We want to use the new font we've added. Let's give it some margin top. Okay, now let's add some more classes to this button. So what I want to do here is that I want this to have a background. Let's add some padding for the top. Then I want to add some padding. That was actually some margin, so let's add some padding, something like this. Okay, let's give it some animations. We're gonna say duration 200 ease, and then we want to transition all the properties. Okay, now I don't want this to actually take the whole width of the page, so I'm gonna say in here, let's say items center. It's going to center all our divs inside this bit over here. Let's add some text. Let's make it white. Okay, I think I want to make this whole thing bold. Let's see if this looks nice. Okay, I think that looks okay. Maybe make that whole text bigger. Maybe I should take off the bold. Okay, let's maybe add some hover effect on here. So let's say hover shadow LG. Okay, I think we can leave it like this for now. Let's just add it into a component. So we're going to say this is going to be report section dot view. Let's add a template in here, and let's add all the code. Okay, now let's actually use it in here. So we're gonna say report section. Okay, that looks fine. Actually, I think I'm gonna go into here. I'm actually gonna make this uppercase. And I think I actually want to go bold on this one. Yeah, let's leave it like this for now. Let's close this in here. Okay, I want to add a small divider in here. And this is going to be a self-closing div. And let's just add some classes in here. We want to have some vertical margins. I'm gonna give it a little bit of height. I want it to be full width, and let's give it like some color. That's too big. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Okay, that's fine. Maybe just change the color a little bit. Okay, that looks fine. Next, I want to have a search section in here where users can search if we have a certain app or a game in our database. So for that, I'm going to use to create actually search section, a new component, which I've actually already wrote. So let's just create it in here, search section.view, and let's just paste the code in here. I'm gonna save it. Okay, so you can see that we have an input field in here. We have a search button. When we click it, it will transform into a loading animation in here. So let's take a look in here. The props it has is disabled, loading, and show clear. So basically, after you've searched for something, this one becomes disabled, and this button will become red, and it will say clear, which when clicked, it will actually clear all the information in here, and then you can start your search again. Let's look a little bit at the code. So you can see we have an input with a vModel search value. It has a disabled field. And then on the button, we don't show it if the show clear is true. And else we show search in here. And you can see that on click, on the clear click, it just emits the clear, and then we're going to handle this on this side. So This is one component we're going to use in the report page. For now, it's just going to stay here because we're going to be using it later. Okay, for now, let's go to the latest reports and let's try and customize it a little bit. So again, we want to use the pixel up font. We want to have some margin from the top. And what I want to do here is I want to have a background color, and I want to round it on top. Rounded top, let's say maybe LG. Yeah, something like that. Let's center the text center in here. Maybe we can make it also bigger. And I think we also wanted to make white. Let's make it uppercase and also bold. So maybe make the text a little bit bigger. So if we say Excel. Yeah, let's leave it like this for now. Now let's do the same for all the other sections. So we're gonna say okay, that looks fine for now. Next, I want to have some tiles in here which are going to represent an app. So for that, I want to actually create a grid. And I'm going to just copy paste this in here because I already have it. And inside, I'm going to also use a new component called app tile, which I already have. So let's create a new component. Let's go to components, say app tile, that view, and I'm just gonna copy the code for this. Let's take a quick look through here what it does. Let's take a look at the props. So for the props, we are going to get an icon URL. We're going to get a title, a rating, which is going to be a string, the developer name, a review, which is going to be the review left by a user on this platform. And we're also going to have the review date. So let's create one of these app tiles and let's give it some information in here. Once again, I'm just going to use some already prepared data in here. So what we're doing here is that we are repeating this app tile 6 times. We give it a unique key, then we use an icon URL, which I just got a random one from the Play Store. We give it a title, we give it a rating, we give it a dev name, and this is the latest review that that app got. So you can see how it looks now, and it's also already optimized for mobile view. So let's take a look. If we change the resolution here, let's actually make this one full screen. This is how it looks on a mobile. Yeah, we go higher, then the amount of items in the grid changes. So you can see this is how it's going to look on all the screens. Cool. So you can see what we have here. We are emitting a clicked event in case we actually click on one of these tiles. Then we're using the icon URL. Actually, I think we should be using the props.icon URL in here. So let's say props. Then we're using the title as an alternative. Again, we're using this referrer policy because sometimes it seems like these images do not get loaded unless you have this referrer policy in here. Then again, we're using the title, we're using the rating in here. This is going to be the developer name, and this is going to be the latest review. I'm also actually missing one of the font awesome icons because you can see in here we are using a font awesome icon somewhere. This one, quote left and quote right. So let's add those in here. Let's go to font awesome, quote left and quote right. Okay, so now you can see it also has these little quotes in here. Cool, let's close this one. Let's also close the app tile. Okay, for now let's actually add these app tiles to all the sections just so we have a placeholder and we can see how it looks all together. Okay, so now if we go down, let's make this full screen. We have an issue over here, it seems. I think we just need to add some Z-index on the navigation. So let's go to top nav, top nav. Let's see, I think we need to add some settings here. Yeah, that seems to have fixed it. Okay, let's just lint this, save it, close. Let's close all of this. Cool. Let's see, it's linted here. So for now we don't need to work with the index anymore. Let's go to the new report page. So the new report page is going to be in here, and it's going to allow our users to actually report an app or a game. Before we even start working on this page, let's actually switch to our API and work there a little bit. Let's start by creating a couple of new controllers. So we're going to say art make controller. One of them is going to be called scraper controller. Another one we're going to call apps controller. And another one is going to be reports controller. So we're going to use the scraper controller with a library for Composer, which is going to scrape the Google Play Store for the app that we're searching for. The apps controller is going to deal with all our apps that are already in the database, and the reports controller is going to deal with the reports that are in the database. Let's clear this and let's switch to our API. Okay, in here I want to create 3 more groups. 3 groups. And we're going to say this one is going to be store, which is going to be dealing with all the scraping functionality. So this one is going to be a post, because we are going to want to send the search query in here. And this one is going to be called search. We're going to be using scraper controller, and the function is going to be called scrape. This other one is going to be using the apps prefix, and is going to look for the apps that we already have in the database. We're not going to use a middleware in here because we want this to be available to all the users on the website. And this one is also going to be a post, also search, but this time we're going to use the apps controller, and we're going to say search in here too. And the last one is going to be for the reports. For now I think we're going to leave it with the logged in middleware, and we also want to just create a new endpoint for creating reports. So we're going to call this create. We're going to use reports controller, and we're going to say in here store. Next, let's actually bring in the package for scraping the Google Play Store, and I'm using this package on GitHub. In order to bring it into our project, let's say composer require. Let's wait a little bit. So now we have it available, and let's go to our scraper controller. Let's make this full screen and let's start typing in here. Okay, and I already have written the function for scraping the Play Store. Let me just import all these classes. You can actually go through the documentation. It's really simple to understand how it works. So we're going to use a string in here. The way this works is that we're going to send a search query, and we want to validate it first, make sure it's a string and minimum 3 characters. Then we're going to assign this to a variable called app ID. And we're going to allow our user to either send the package name, which is something like com.test.demo, something like that, or they can actually paste in the URL, which is the full URL for the app on the Play Store. So in here what we're doing is we're checking if this is an URL, and if it's an URL, then we create a request object from this, and then we look at the URL and see if there's an ID parameter for that, and we just assign that to the app ID. Otherwise, it means that it's just an package name, and we just leave it as it is. Let's import this class, and then we instantiate the Google Play scraper. We try to get all the information about the app. If that information exists and is valid, then we return it in this form. Otherwise, we're just going to send a error message with a 404, which means that the app was not found. Let's try this out now in Postman, see if it actually works. So we are hitting the store search endpoint. It's a post. And first we want to send the full URL to an app. Let's send that. We can see that we're getting back the title, store ID, and everything else. Cool. Now let's try and send just the package name. That also works, seems to be fine. And now let's search for something that would not exist. So it's the same app, but we don't have the last letters in here. So let's send that. And we're getting back an error message which says app not found on the Play Store. Cool. Let's go to our code. Next, I want to start creating our migrations. So we need to have a database that is going to store all the information for our project. So let's start with making a migration. We're going to call it create developers table. And we are going to create a table called developers. Okay, next one, make migration. We want to create apps table, and we're going to create a table called apps. Okay, another one, make migration. We want to create a reports table, so create reports table. Again, do this. And another one which is going to hold our fake ads, so links to the fake ads for the apps. It's going to be a migration, create fake ads table, create fake ads. Okay, let's clear this up. Let's go to our migration. Cool. So for the developers, I actually already have some of the table structure in here, so I'm just going to copy that. For the developers, we have an ID in here, name, the store ID is the ID for them on the actual Play Store, the URL, the website, and the email. That's enough for the developers. Then we go to the apps table. Let me copy this in here. And for the apps, we're going to store the title, store ID, store URL, icon, rating, and we're going to have a developer ID. So there's going to be a relationship of 1 to many on the developers. Then let's go to the next one. This is going to be our reports table. Let's just copy this in here. And for every report we're gonna have a comment. We also want to have a checkbox which is gonna say if the app works offline as reported by the user. Then we're gonna have a published flag, which means that every time someone submits a report, it's not going to go live right away. I'm going to actually moderate it, so if it's nicely formatted and like it actually makes sense to be on the platform, then we are going to publish. So every time this publish flag is going to be true, is going to appear on the front page. And then we have a reference to the, let's go to the next one, and this is going to be our fake ads. This one is going to be really simple. It's going to just have a URL to a YouTube video, for example. Then it's going to have a reference to the app ID. Okay, let's close all these for now. Okay, now let's migrate everything, and I'm going to actually migrate fresh because I don't really care about the current data in there. Cool, that worked fine. Let's actually take a look at our database. So we can see that we have a couple of new tables, the apps table, developers, then we have fake ads and reports. Cool, that worked fine. So let's go back to our code. Next, let's create some models so we can easily work with our database. So we're going to say art, make model. One of them is going to be developer. Another one is going to be called fake ad. Another one is going to be report. And another one is going to be, I was trying to call it app, but I think that's a bad idea because app is also used in Laravel everywhere, so we're gonna just call it store app. Okay. And because we called our model store app, but our table is still called apps, we need to go in there and tell the model which table to use. So we're going to go in store app in here. And we're going to say use this table instead of, otherwise it's going to try to look for a table called store app because it's looking at the file name. Okay, let's close this. So let's close all of them for now. Okay, the last thing I want to do for the API is that I want to be able to actually create a report. And for that, I already have a function written. So let's just copy paste it in here. Let's close this. Let's import the classes. Okay, cool. We have all the classes imported. So let's go a little bit through the code. When we are sending a request to this store API endpoint, we want to validate the app ID. We want it to be required, string, minimum of 5 characters. We want to have a comment, which is required. We want to have a value for the works offline checkbox. And then we want to have a fake add field, which can actually be nullable, but if it's not nullable, if it's not null, then it should be a URL. A valid URL. Okay, so because we want to kind of protect a little bit this endpoint from people just sending whatever data in there, we're having some restrictions that we're not sending all the data from the front end about the app, but we are only sending the app ID, and then we are scraping again. Okay, so we are scraping the data again. We are going to get the app info using the scraper. And then we're going to take a look if a developer exists for this app. And if that developer does not exist, we create a new developer in the database. Same goes for the app. So if the app already exists in the store in our database, then we're using that information. Otherwise, we're just creating a new app. And for the report, we are creating a new report where we're going to store the comment, the app ID, the author ID, and everything else. Then also, if we do have a fake add in our request, we also create a new item in database for that. If everything goes fine, we're just returning a JSON message. Otherwise, we are going to say something went wrong. And for now, I do have a die dump in here, just temporary. So let's save this and let's go back to our Postman, see if we can actually test this out. I do already have a API endpoint created in here. So it's going to be sent to reports, create, and you can see all the information we have in here. Okay, now let's try and actually create a new report. Let's click send over here. Thank you, your report is in review. Let's take a look at the database. So if we go to apps, we have the app information here. We have a new developer. We have a fake add. Just take a look at the URL. Yeah, that looks fine. And we do have a new report in here. Okay, let's try and create a new one. So let's say it's for the same app. Let's just change the comment and let's say works offline is 1. Send again. Okay, the field must be at least 10 characters. Cool, that worked. Let's take a look again. So if we go back to the apps, we still have just one app in here. Go to the developers, we have just one developer. Fake ads, and then reports, we have 2 of these, and works offline was also set to 1. Okay, let's just try and create a report for a different app. So if we're gonna say here this, and this is my comment, we're not gonna send the offline in here. Okay, let's send this. Also this one has to be, so we need to be careful to always have it available in the front end, so we always need to send it. Let's save this, send. Okay, let's look again in the database. Now we have 3 reports, and this one is for app ID 2. So we do have 2 apps now. we do have 2 developers, and for the fake ads we have 3 of these in here. Okay, so that seems to be working. Let's try one more thing, is that let's try and send an app ID that does not exist. Okay, so that actually went into the try catch, and you can see that we have this error in here. Let's try and just send a JSON response back. If we do this again. Okay, that looks really good. So everything seems to be working now. Let's go back to our code. Okay, now that we have everything in our API, let's go back to our client. Now let's create a couple new services, because now we have a new store service and a report service. So let's do just that. One of them is going to be called store service.ts, and another one is going to be called report service.ts. I'm just going to copy and paste this service, and in here you can see that we are creating a submit function, which is going to submit to the newly created API endpoint reports create, and we're going to send the app ID, comment, works offline, and fake ad, exactly as we saw in the Postman. And for this we also need the types. So in the types we're going to create a new type. Let's go in here and call it new report.ts. And again, we're just going to copy it, because this is the same response structure that we're getting from that we saw in Postman. Let's ESLint this. Let's save it and just reload the window. Okay, this one should be fixed now. Okay, cool. So let's close this and let's go to our store service. And this service is going to be used for searching the app, primarily the scraper controller. So you can see we have a search function here that points to the store/search, and we're going to send a search query. Again, exactly as we saw it in the Postman. And for the response from this, we want to create another type. Let's create a new type, which is going to be called store search.ts. And this is basically just the type of data we receive back. Next, I'm just going to copy over some components that I've created. So if we go to components in here, one of them is going to be a text area. So basically I'm just saying FMG in front, because I know these are my custom components. So I'm just copied this one from here. Okay, seems to have an issue in here. Okay, props, everything. We'll go for them a little bit later. I also have this FMG input that we had earlier, but I made some changes to it. So I'm just gonna recopy it again. And again, since I have this props in here, let's save that. And another component is a checkbox. So this is going to be called FMG checkbox.view. Let's copy this in here. Let's take a look. Seems to be fine. Now for this checkbox, you can see that I'm not actually using an input field, but I'm simulating that input field using some icons in here. So we have to import these. So this is square check, which is a solid, and square, which is a regular. So let's go to our font awesome, and let's say square from regular. I think the other one was square check, which is a solid one. That looks fine. Let's close this checkbox. For the input, I am actually using an input field, and you can see it's always going to take the full width that it's possible for it. Then we have some classes if we want to send any classes to it, to this input element. Then we have a placeholder, a disabled property, the value, and a listener on the input. Basically, this is used because we want to use a V model in the parent. And in here, you can say I can actually give it an autofocus, so we can actually focus on this element as soon as the page loads, and these are the emits it has. Okay, then we have the text area. It's basically the same as the input, but the thing is that you can you also have these properties, which are rows, and it's basically the same as the input element, the input component. So let's close all this stuff right now and let's go back to our page. For the new report page, I'm actually also going to copy paste this because it's a lot to write, but it's pretty self-explanatory and you can actually look at this code. After we finish this lesson, I will actually push it to GitHub. But we do have a search section, which we discussed about it earlier, which is going to, so we can take a look, handle search. It's going to use that new request we've created and is going to use the result afterwards to create an app, to put the data into the app info right here. Then we have all the data that we're showing on the screen. And then we're using the text area for the comment. And then we're using a checkbox to see if it works offline or not. And then we have an input for one video URL for a fake ad. So if we save this now, let's put it on the side. Let's actually open our browser. Let's refresh this again. Let's go to this page. Okay, cool. So in here, we know that this has to work now. So let's go to our Postman and get the URL from here. Let's go to our browser. Let's put this in here. Search. Cool. So now we can see we have the title. And if we click on it, it's going to actually open it in a new tab. Okay, then we also have the title for the developer. So if we click on this, we go to the developer page on Play Store. Then we have the rating in here, which seems that we'll need to address that. Actually not address it, but I think we need to only show the first 3 or maybe first 2 characters in this. Okay, then we have the comment, the work offline. These are actual font awesome icons. And then we have a URL input field. Okay, let's try now if we can clear all this. Let's also try a different app in here. This is my comment. Let's say it works offline. And what was it? Watch. Something like that. Okay, so now if we click submit, cool, we got sent to the main page. And let's take a look at our database. So if we go to apps, we have Monopoly Go in here. We do have a new developer. We have a new fake ad. And we have a new report, which is app ID 3, which is this one. Yeah. So now our front end also works. Let's go back to this. One thing I want to do is that I want to restrict this report page to only authorized users. So let's go in here. I think I actually already have it in here. Yeah, I do have it in here. But for that, we're going to implement a toast message later. But for now, let's at least add some login here. Sign in first. Let's see if that works. So if we go in here, let's look at our console. Now everything seems to look fine, but if we go in here and log out, we click in here, we get sign in first and we're getting redirected to the sign in page. Okay, I think that's all for today and I will see you in the next one. Let's just close everything in here. Cool. See ya.